Welcome to the 2009 Halo 3 National Championships from Orlando, Florida. $280,000 is up for grabs, and the best teams from around the world are here to compete for a piece of it. We'll be talking about all the big matches coming up this weekend, but first, we have a very special announcement, and here to deliver the news is one of my favorite people, Sundance Digiovanni. Sundance, welcome to the show.
Hey, Puckett, thanks for having me.
All right, so Sundance, this is our 6th national championships. It's been a great year for us in 2009, amazing season. We're coming to a close here. But in Dallas, you came on the show to give us a little info on a deal with Doritos. And now you're here to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yep, so I've got some details now on Doritos. So we've been working with them for quite some time to try and figure out what we can bring to the community that's going to really change the game for us in 2010. And to keep it short, we're doubling the events we're going to have next year. We're going to be throwing in these combine events in between the pro circuits and doubling the total of MLG events that you're going to have access to out there. So I'm pretty excited about it. It's a new way for us to find players, to identify talented players, elevate them, and get them onto the pro circuit, because we know there are a lot of you out there who can't get to these events. So now there's another way in. And we got to thank Doritos for the amazing support that they've given us.
This is huge.
It's huge. I mean,
Doritos is helping us double the number of events for 2010.
They are. I mean, I couldn't be more thankful to the type of a partnership we've already started. And I think you guys are going to be absolutely blown away by what they bring to the table and how much they believe in you guys and this community, just like all of our other partners. It's amazing. Now, the best part of it is I'm actually going to share with you the date for the first combine. We've got it all booked and it's all locked and loaded. So I'm going to read it because I don't want to get it wrong. The first combine event in 2010 will be in Nashville, Tennessee. Tennessee at the Gaylord Opryland Hotel, which is the same chain of places like the one we're in right here in Orlando. And it's going to be locked in, and we're going to do it so that it leads right into the next pro circuit event, which will be announced shortly. I can't give you those details yet.
So Nashville, Tennessee is our first stop.
Nashville, Tennessee, free-for-all and 4v4 team play for Halo 3. All the details are going to be coming out on our website soon. We're not ready to book the tickets yet. But guys, it's going to be amazing. I can't wait to get there. We're going to have a ton of MLG pros, folks like Puckett and myself, evaluating talent, grading players, and helping people who are not only just the guys who want to go pro, but the guys who just are tired of getting their asses kicked by their friends next door.
All right, well, who's going to be the next Snipe Down? 2010, I think we're going to find out,
try
baby.
And find out.
All right, guys, Sundance, thank you for joining me on the show. You got to get down there and help produce.
I got to go do the work.
It's time for the pregame show. Stay tuned.
Good job, guys. Go.
Coming for you.
All right, guys, welcome back to the pregame show. Right now, we just swapped out Sundance for Dmaq so fast.
So fast.
And sitting next to Dmaq for the first time on the pregame show, Scott Lussier. Scott, welcome to the show, buddy.
Welcome, Scotty.
All right, so Scott, it's 2009, well, 2010, but we're here for the national championships of 2009's Pro Circuit season. And here in the winner's bracket this time around, our top 8 teams are the only ones competing in the winner's bracket. The other teams, they're all fighting out of the loser's bracket. And Dmaq, we got to learn a little bit about these top 8 teams. Give me a rundown, starting with our 8-seeded team, Status Quo.
When we have a number 8-seeded Status Quo, they've been pretty good this season, but they haven't been exceptional. Status Quo, they finished top 10 the past 2 tournaments. You would expect them with a change in legend to improve, but it hasn't happened. Status Quo, they've had a tough time this season.
But you know, that's partly due to their age. You know, they're a bunch of young guys. And now with a player like Legend and the way they land before this event, they land against Triggers Down and Carbon. You can expect this team to come in here and turn some heads. You can't look at their past placings and base that on how they're going to place now.
And you could expect some bright things. They have some bright players in Ace and Legend, and Flame Sword and Tots have certainly improved as the season has gone on. But with the emergence of other teams, they're definitely they're the 8th seed.
Well, Status Quo, you know they have the practice. They have the sweetest land set up in all of Major League Gaming. So Status Quo, I know they're prepared. They've been landing with every team on the planet for this event. But now, guys, let's talk about one of those other teams that is very prepared for this one. Believe the Hype. They're coming in at our number 7.
You know, Believe the Hype started off this season extremely strong. They finished 3rd, and, you know, they got a little apart from themselves, but now they're back together. This team practically beat every team on the circuit.
And it's interesting that he says that because it's true. They have beaten every single team on the circuit. In fact, Believe the Hype is the only other team besides Straight Rippin' and Triggers Down to do so. When looking at Believe the Hype, the most dangerous number 7 seed that we've ever seen going into a national championship. Cloud and Demon D have been the staple of this team as the season has gone on, going positive 150 in Anaheim together. They've been a monstrous duo. They're sick.
I agree. I
can't even go anymore.
Now, Scott, believe the hype. This is one of those teams that you really like just because of their teamwork. Talk to me a little bit about this squad and what we can expect to see this weekend.
You know, they work in a good unison, Chris. You know, Clutch and Cloud, even though they don't see eye to eye so much outside of the game, but inside the game, they understand each other really well. And because of that, they work together as a duo. And you see them filtering around the map, always very well consistently.
All right, well, right now you're checking out some highlights of Final Boss. I guess that means it's time to talk about them. Now, Final Boss, they've been top 4 all season long, but this event, they're coming in as the 6th seed after finishing outside of the top 8 back in our last event at Anaheim. What can we expect to see out of Final Boss? They just picked up their 4th this week. Tuesday, Cypher was picked up by the squad.
And, you know, I like their pickup with Cypher. He's an extremely talented player. He was actually on the Believe the Hype squad when they finished 3rd. But the thing is I just don't know if they're too prepared going into this event. They have all the mechanics to make a good team. I just don't know if it's there because of the short term.
And then when you look at what they did last event, they came off such a disappointing event. Their first finish outside of the top 8, that definitely has to rattle them psychologically. Then you have to pick up a new player the week of the championships. Final Boss definitely isn't as smooth as they want to be. You know, they haven't made the transition. They are not the Final Boss of old. This is not 2006. Final Boss is not at a dominant level at this point. They have something to prove going into the championships for the first time.
And you know what? I think adding Cypher to the lineup is definitely going to help them, although they did not have a whole lot of time to prepare. Although I did get a message from Victory X while playing on Xbox Live saying Final Boss top 1 in Orlando. So we'll see how that plays out. But guys, let's talk about our number 5 seed now. Team Classic, they're coming in, they got Ghostyami, and they're looking really mean at their last land.
You know, this is one of my favorite teams to watch, and that's why it's so heartbreaking for me to have to see them go against Carbon in our round 2. This team is pretty much a mini Carbon. They're so well talented, and Ghostyami has made them understand the game to a different level than they've ever experienced. And going into the land, not to interrupt you, sorry,
I'm sorry,
but they land against Straight Rippin', and they beat Straight Rippin'. I'm talking like 8-3 in series. This team is coming to play.
And this team has drastically improved since the beginning of the season. They didn't even place in the top 8 in the beginning of the season. They finished in the top 6 the past 3 events. Classic is a different team than we saw in the beginning, but at the same time, you know, they did beat Straight Rippin' at a LAN, but it was only a LAN. LANs are different. Here at the tournament, this is where it counts. Classic has not beaten a top 6 team besides Instinct this season. That's a problem if they're going to go into the championship.
And now, guys, Classic is a team, we don't even have highlights for them because they haven't made it to a broadcast. They haven't gone that far into the tournament in the winner's bracket. Can they do it here this weekend?
Well, this is where all the big boys come out, and this is where all the big boys put out all their big controllers and put on their big belts. So I don't think Classic is...
If you don't wear your big belts, just so you know, you can't win a national championship.
Now, what I'm saying is I don't think Classic could just show up at this tournament and decide that this is their tournament when everybody else is here saying this is their tournament. You know, it's not feasible.
All right, well, a team that is saying this is our tournament, it's Carbon. They finished top 3 at our last 2 events after coming together. Talk to me about this squad. They're coming in as our 4th seed, and they got this guy on their team, Walshy. He was looking pretty good earlier today.
I love this lineup, Chris. Their first time they've been together, they went -80 as a whole, and they finished 2nd place. If you're going -80, that means your objective game is on point, probably better than every other team in the league, in my opinion. So this team's coming to play. They land against Triggers Down and Instinct.
And Status Quo.
And Status Quo. They had the 4-team land. This team's coming prepared. And when you put two players like Walshy and Shockwave in a 4-team land, they're going to figure out all those strats, and they're going to counter them, and they're going to come into the event and look to win.
Well, they definitely have Walshy, the strategist, and a player who hasn't placed outside the top 2 in any of our national championships. That's something good to have on a team. But then when you look at Carbon, I don't know. There's questions. There's questions about Carbon's consistency. It was a completely different team. Now they're revolutionized. They didn't play that well at the LAN. There's questions to see whether they could fall into the top 3. I don't know.
They got Nated, they have Defy, they have Shockwave, they got Walshy. I'm not too worried about them, and I'm not really worried about this next team. It's Instinct. Although they finished pretty poorly in Anaheim, they're looking pretty strong in that LAN as well, and Neighbor seems to be at the top of his game right now.
Well, people are saying that Neighbor is playing at a level that nobody has ever seen him play at, and that's a pretty big deal because we've seen Neighbor dominate this game. But when you look at Instinct, here's another team who has questions coming into tournament time. Psychologically, are they completely there? Yes, they dominated Triggers Down at the LAN, they beat Carbon at the LAN, and they swept Status Quo. But it's all at the LAN. Here at the championships, this is when the pressure is on. Let's see if all the teams could get focused. Let's see if Instinct could really get together and put a top 2 finish.
Scott, what are you thinking about Instinct coming in this one?
I mean, he took all the words out of my mouth, but basically, you know, they've landed against the top teams. They land against Triggers Down, who I thought was unbeatable, and they beat them at the LAN, and that shows a lot. For me, I see Neighbor growing as a player. He's finally back in a comfort zone, and that's going to make him play to his best potential.
But my only question about Instinct is when their backs up are against the wall, when it's 2-1 or when it's 2-0, and if things are not looking good in the third game, is Neighbor going to take his headset off, and is he just going to play, or is Neighbor going to rally his troops like a true leader, and is he going to get them to a first-place finish? That's what we're waiting to see.
You know, I don't know if Neighbor is a leader, but as long as he is their main slayer, I think that team has a chance. Scott, you want to say something? Go for it.
But the thing is, about their preparation for this event, they had Triple X go to the event and go to the LAN, and because of that, now he knows how to get them fired up. So Neighbor can step down and just be the player he wants to be, and Triple X can get into their heads. As soon as you trust your coach, he can fire you up. No one has to step up. And that's going to be huge coming into this event.
The fifth man going to be a key player for them this week. And guys, let's talk about Straight Rippin' now, our number 2 team, the only team other than Triggers Down to win an event this year, and are reigning 2008 national champions. They're looking to repeat here in 2010, 9, whatever.
And they've looked very impressive. Straight Rippin' looked impressive in Anaheim. They took Triggers Down to 11-game series, the first that we've ever seen in Halo 3. Looking at Straight Rippin' coming into this event, they haven't lost a stride. They are not looking at themselves as the number 2 seed. They're looking at themselves as the defending national champions, and that's what they are. Hometown heroes coming here in Orlando, Florida. I don't expect Straight Rippin' to miss a beat. I expect them to be on fire.
And you know, not to go against you or anything, but the player who I'm looking at to make the difference on Straight Rippin' is Legit. Legit, when you see Legit be angry, you look back and you see Columbus 2009, where they beat Triggers Down 6-1. And that's the Legit who's double LPRing people, throwing the flag, capping it, doing it all. That's what they need for this team.
And it's interesting that you brought that up. They beat Triggers Down 6-1. Triggers Down beat them 6-5. Granted, there was a four-month difference between those tournaments, but when Straight Rippin' is on fire, they can be completely dominant and shut everything down.
Now,
that's a problem.
Guys, they took Triggers Down to 11 games at our last event, one of the most exciting championship matches we've ever seen. But guys, I want to know, we're probably going to see these big two butt up against each other again. Was Straight Rippin' at their best in Anaheim, or will we see an even better Straight Rippin' here in Orlando?
I don't think Straight Rippin' was at their best. Watching their game, I don't think that you do
I went back just because I loved that broadcast right there. It was probably the most entertaining 11-game series I've ever seen. So I went back and I watched it, and I noticed 2 things that really stuck out to me. One, Snipe Down was extremely quiet. He just sat there, he was focusing on his game, which was odd to me, the Snipe Down I know talks trash just a little bit, you know, he kind of rides off of Elamite. And then I saw a Legit who was calm and he didn't say much. Legit gets pumped. When you see Legit get pumped, you're like, oh no, I'm getting out of his way because he's gonna destroy me.
Yeah, and things that are changing here, national championship, hometown. That's a big difference, you know, and they don't have to travel across the country to play. They're driving 20 minutes from the Straight Mansion. It's different.
Sanctuary.
Yeah.
And we saw how, you know, the fans really do play a huge role. Final Boss, they finished top 3 when it was Ogre 2's hometown.
Yeah.
So, you know, we'll see if that hometown crowd is going to help out Straight Rippin'. But they're going to be going up against our number 1 team, the team that has won 3 out of our 4 events so far, Triggers Down. These guys on top of the Halo 3 world right now. What can we expect to see from them this weekend?
Triggers Down has been absolutely dominant this season, and we expect to see the same thing. This team has not lost since June 6th. That's 6 months. That's ridiculous. When you look at Triggers Down, they do everything right. They cause frustration on their opponents. Arguably 3 of the top 4 players in Pistola, Hysteria, and Hines. Hines, the best support player in this game.
That's a strong statement right there.
Yes.
Scott, what are your thoughts? What can we expect to see? I love these Triggers Down highlights. I gotta watch them forever.
I expect to see a Hysteria we haven't seen. Hysteria's been quiet. And you know, talking to the guys about the LAN, they said Hysteria, literally played out of his mind. He made Pistola look like he wasn't even on the team. And to silence a player like Pistola, that says a lot. I mean, he's the 3-time MVP.
Yeah, and we've seen all of them able to turn it on at any single time. That's the beauty of Triggers Down. If one person is off, the other person picks up the slack. SK keeps the whole team together. It's just perfect harmony.
It is what it is. All right, guys. Well, those are your top 8 teams. You now know who's competing in the winners bracket. But, guys, let's give a little season overview. Let's talk about what we saw from our very first event back in the Meadowlands, our second season of Halo 3, to now. We've seen a ton of team changes, lots of drama, and some new teams rising to the top.
When we look at the new teams, obviously, you like to point out, Classic wasn't in the top 8 in Meadowlands. They've placed in the top 6 consistently since. We talk about UTI getting their first top 8 finish, Dynasty pulling into the top 4. You know, the level of competition has definitely grown smaller. That's what happens as the game goes on. But then different things. Triggers Down. They placed 5th at last year's championship. They've dominated this season with a couple of changes. And then Straight Rippin', not nearly as dominant as last season. Carbon, totally revolutionized. Placed 8th in the beginning of the season. Now they're placing 2nd and 3rd. You know, the season has gone on, a lot of different changes. This season, especially has been a very good one for me.
Hey, Scott?
I mean, he pretty much said everything, but I'm surprised it took you so long. But Carbon made the best moves this season. I mean, when you take 2 players like Shockwave and Walsh and put them on a team, you could give them any 2 players, and they're going to teach them how to play, and they're going to place in the top 8. That's my personal statement. You can trademark it or whatever, but I'm telling you, Walshy and Shockwave hold that team together. Yes, Nated is an incredible player, probably one of the best we have on the circuit. But without strategy and without unison, he wouldn't do anything. We saw him not get out of amateur bracket.
And then we see a couple different things. You see the fall off of Final Boss. Final Boss is nearly as dominant as they were at the end of the last season. It's crazy, man. You don't expect these changes. That's the craziest part about it. Instinct, 2nd place at last year's championship. Look at where they are now. Coming into this event, yeah, they're the number 3 seed, but not nearly as dominant as the number 3 team.
All right, guys. Well, I think that wraps it up. I'm pumped up for this weekend, and tonight we have the All-Star game. Now, before we go, you're going to be back on for some predictions later in the show.
We'll do it.
We're going to be talking to some pro players coming up here. But before we go here, pregame All-Star predictions.
I bleed blue, which is the East Coast, and I'm saying sweep.
Yo.
Sweep 7-0.
Right here.
It's for sure.
East Coast with my man, The Situation. Ooh.
Oh, all right. Well, you know what, guys? I'm throwing it out there. West Coast, Hysteria, Native.
First time ever?
What a sellout.
We hold 6 in a row.
Doesn't he live in New York?
Well, yeah.
Whatever. All right, guys. I love the East Coast, but West is going to be better tonight. I'll prove it to you. All right, guys. That's going to do it. You guys are going to be back on the show later for your winners bracket predictions. But coming up next, I'm going to be sitting down with a member of each of our top 4 teams. Stay tuned.